Now, just this week saw Canelo Alvarez picked up a 6-month ban following his positive test for clenbuterol back in February. It means he misses out on his May 5th payday with Gennady Golovkin, a rematch of their match back in September. But it seems as if that match may still happen this year. To discuss the fallout of Canelo's positive test, his 6-month ban and a whole lot more, I'm joined on the line by Matt Christie, the editor of Boxing News, and also the former 2-time world champion Paulie Malignaggi. Matt, we'll start with you first. I think a lot of people might be surprised with the leniency of this ban.
It's not ideal for the sport of boxing. I think I myself personally, and a lot of fans have said that there's a real obvious problem that goes throughout the sport of boxing. And for a long time, I thought the only way to solve it would be if a real A-lister was caught taking drugs, and therefore a very, very harsh punishment could be told out, and then it would send the right message. What we've done here is completely the opposite, I fear.
Matt, what we've seen pretty much from the moment this news broke of Canelo's positive test is an effort to sweep it to one side in a way. He obviously in his camp are saying this is the result of contaminated meat that he consumed in Mexico. It seems to be a very prevalent thing amongst Mexican boxers over the course of the last few years. And even the initial noises that we heard from the Nevada State Athletic Commission where this guy's played by the book so far, we're willing to almost be as lenient as we possibly can on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I found all that completely infuriating, to be honest with you. There was almost this just presumption that because he's Canelo and because he hasn't been caught before, that he must be a good boy, and that's absolutely nonsense. And frankly, an athlete of Canelo's standing, with a team that Canelo would have in place, even if it was contaminated meat, he should be harshly punished because it was a ludicrous thing to be putting in his mouth without knowing what it was. If that is the case, I mean, I accept it's lightly doubtful that is. But if it is, what we needed to see was absolute proof beyond any doubt that was what caused it. We needed to see proof. We needed to see the trail from the restaurant or wherever he got this meat from to prove that it was contaminated. It just seems we've just got his word for it.
Do we know how rigorous the kind of backtracing of all this was following the test?
I mean, I haven't seen all the details of it. I mean, the thing that concerns me was how quickly the hearing was. The hearing seemed to be over in a flash, which suggested that the punishment had already been resolved behind the scenes. It's no secret how much money Nevada are set to make from a Golovkin rematch, a Canelo Golovkin rematch, and for anybody to suggest that this is a punishment that fits the crime by saying that Canelo has lost an 8-figure payday is absolutely lost the plot. This is absolutely deplorable from the Nevada Commission. They had a golden opportunity to show the world, to show boxing that at last they could really clean their slate, and they've botched it.
Paulie, I'll bring you in here as well. This is something that you've obviously been quite outspoken about before in the past number of years, not necessarily even in the past number of months following the news of Canelo's positive test. For you, this would clearly send out the wrong message to anybody who might be willing to engage in doping on any level. That, you know, if someone of Canelo's magnitude and somebody of Canelo's stature in the game, if he's just picking up a 6-month ban and the other 6 months is please don't do this again, you've been a bad boy, others are going to be tempted to try this, surely.
Yeah, I don't think there's been enough punishment put in. I think that we need to really discourage people from doing this. Here's the thing. Here's how you know the hypocrisy of this decision. I'll give you this example. First off, number one, Nick Diaz was suspended for longer than this for marijuana a few years ago. He's a UFC fighter, okay? For marijuana, he got a 1-year suspension, okay? This is Canelo gets less than that for PEDs. That's number one. Number two, along with a 6-month suspension, there should be a mandatory probationary period and at least a fine along with a 6-month suspension. And what I mean by probationary period is for, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say for the next 2 years, Canelo needs to be strictly random and regularly drug tested consistently for the next 2 years straight, for the next 24 months straight. And if at any point during those 24 months he fails again, you add 2 or 3 years to this suspension. Okay? Now here's the problem, the hypocrisy of this. This guy brings in so much money that they don't actually want to catch this guy cheating again. They're disappointed that they caught him cheating once. Okay, they didn't. This, and this is how you know all this drug testing and all this it's hoopla, is all just for show. It's all just to save face, because they don't actually want a guy like this to fail. Okay, I'll tell you what, if a random no name fails next, I bet you they'll try to make an example out of him just to try to save face, because maybe that person won't be as much of a selling point as Canelo Alvarez. But they really proved something really drastic here with this poor decision. That because if you really wanted to control this, if you look at when he got tested when he failed the test, I think it was February 17th. For a May 5th fight, that's probably around the time when he would start being tested for randomly for the fight, because in boxing, unfortunately, they do these kind of testing situations happen only during training camps. So what you have to do here, you have to put fear into this person now, and by doing let's say a probationary period, you would put fear in that person. The problem is they're more fearful than him because they don't want him to fail again. They don't want to be forced to do anything again. The only reason they're even doing this is because they feel like it would be just a bad look if they just let him get away with it scot-free. Because trust me, if they wouldn't look so bad letting him get away with it scot-free, this decision clearly shows you that's exactly what they would have done. They would have let him get away with it scot-free. Because this decision is so poor, it's unbelievable.
You mentioned there that the testing only necessarily happens when you're within camp. There's no such thing in your mind, or just generally, as out of competition testing for boxing at the moment.
There is an organization called VADA does at times do it, but they're not funded enough. They're a new organization. I think they're a great organization. They're relatively new, but they're not funded enough yet. They don't have enough money. If VADA could find a huge sponsor or a huge company to really fund their work, you could really go a long way in trying to fix this, really in testing people more regularly and whatnot, or at least testing the top fighters regularly, at least starting there, right now what you're doing really is all you're doing is cycling your steroids. That's all you're doing right at the moment, because, between camps, people will always continue to cheat, There is some VADA testing all year round for some fighters, I think that were ranked top 15 in the WBC. I was under that testing umbrella at the end of my boxing career, because I was in the top 15 of WBC. They should have won in 6 months. They should have won. They don't have any money. You know what I'm saying? So they'd like to do it more. I know they would. I've spoken to the people. They're honestly they're an organization that wants to do this more, but they have no funding. This drug testing costs a lot of money. You got to get to the athletes, so you got to fly there. You got to house the person that's going to test them at a hotel. And you got to actually get the testing done. Then you got to fly them back. You got to pay for the test to be done, and you got to do this on a regular basis. It costs money. You need a major company to support this. You need a sort of a major company to sponsor this organization, but nobody's going to do that. I mean, don't get me wrong. The promoters could pay for this. The sanctioning bodies in boxing can pay for this. They don't actually want to do this because, like I said, they don't actually want to catch people cheating. They like it the way it is. This is all. Don't ever misinterpret. This is all just to save face. This is all just to save face. There's all this 6-month suspension and all this other fake. This is all just to save face. Because, like I said, if you really wanted to impose the fear of God in Canelo Alvarez, you'd put him on a strict 24-month regular random testing protocol and see where he goes from there.
Matt, I'd imagine with a sport that's so rigidly based around physicality, that's so rigidly based around making weight, that's so rigidly based around the sheer elemental trying to hit one person, it's really not in boxing's interest from a promoter point of view to want to instill more stringent drug testing, which just seems like we're going to be caught in this endless cycle.
No, it's a very, very frightening situation, frankly, at the moment. And who knows? It may have already happened already, and it may have been covered up. But we're rapidly approaching a situation where somebody is going to get seriously injured in the ring, and the person that was landing the damaging punches was taking drugs, was illegally enhanced. That sort of scenario surely would spell the end of boxing as we know it. Yet the authorities don't seem overly keen on admitting anything like that. And I'm almost of the thinking with the way they are at the moment, and a lot of I agreed with everything that Paulie said. The situation is diabolical with testing and the fact that the Nevada Commission were forced into kind of making some action against Canelo just to save their face. It would have been a great inconvenience to them. But we're almost at a situation now to say, well, to hell with it. Everybody take whatever they want to take, because we're no better off, I don't believe. And I heard somebody recently say, well, the fact that more fighters are being tested, the fact that more fighters are being testing positive shows that the drug testing is working. You can argue that point to an extent, but for the drug testing to work, the punishment has to be in place. It has to fit the crime. And as I said at the start, at the moment, it's nowhere near fitting the crime. It's almost, this 6-month ban is, as you said as well, is opening up the doors. You know, come on, cheats. The water's lovely. Come on in.
Yeah, essentially what we're looking at, Paulie, here is he was supposed to fight on May 5th. He's now not going to be available again until August 17th. I mean, he was going to be in a training camp anyway for 3 months of that ban, which has been backdated. It seems farcical that he's going to be allowed to fight again within the realm of this year. But, you know, here we are. I'm just interested to know, when you were making that leap, Paulie, from, say, 2004, 2005, 2006 up to world title level, like, was there anybody in your ear around that time saying, listen, the waters are a little bit more choppy up there, you might be well advised if you took X, Y, and Z, or can I recommend I put you in contact with this person? I mean, how prevalent is it? What kind of conversations go on in those kind of gyms?
No, nobody actually offers it to you because nobody's going to stick out their neck. That's one of the biggest illusions. One of the biggest misconceptions is, people come up to you and offer you this kind of stuff. Nobody actually sticks their neck out on the line, but you hear the rumors, you hear the word spreading around of who you can go to for that, this place or this person or this, because you need laboratory people to really dose you correctly with these kind of PEDs. This isn't the kind of steroids that you're just going to go to the local gym and lift some weights and you're going to pump yourself up. This is high level stuff. You need to be dosed correctly. You need to be dosed at the right times and all that stuff. So people tell you, you hear, not that people tell you, but you hear the rumors, you hear the words going around of who to go to for these kind of things. You know what I'm saying? So it's not as black and white as you would assume, where people just come up to you and offer it to you. But you do know, and at a certain point, I think for me, there's athletes that have not been caught that have bold-faced were cheating, through my boxing career, and I've actually mentioned some names in certain interviews and whatnot.
Yeah, please don't do that again.
It's like a spit in the face. It's a spit in the face to a degree. You know what I'm saying? Where you have situations where people don't respect weight classes anymore. Age doesn't matter anymore. Things like that. This isn't because we're eating any better or we're healthier. This is all the advent of performance-enhancing drugs into more and more into sports. Athletes are getting older a lot slower. In boxing, weight classes are mattering less and less. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with boxing history. I'm sure everybody remembers Marvin Hagler, right?
Yeah.
He was world middleweight champion for 8 years. 8 years. If a guy has a world title now for about 2 or 3 defenses, right away they're on him. The media and fans are on him to when he's going to move up in weight to challenge the next champion in the next weight class. Like, jumping weight classes was never this easy. Now people do it like they're crossing the street. You know what I'm saying? I fought in 3 weight classes in my entire 16-year career from 2001 to 2017. I started at lightweight very, very early for a few fights, but my body was still filling out. I went up to light welterweight for 8 years. And then after that, I was at welterweight for 7 years. I've seen guys jump more weight classes than that in the span of 12 months. It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. So the clues are there. The media are a bunch of circus clowns, because all they say is we can only come after people if there's proof. If with this porous drug testing, you need that kind of proof, that you need a failed test to realize somebody's cheating, then the joke is on you already. You know what I'm saying? But you get to the point where every time you mention somebody's cheating, people just come down on you and they don't want to hear it because these fans are just a bunch of groupies. And really, in reality, the media are a bunch of groupies. And they're not actually trying to catch anybody cheating. This actually sells. Accomplishing more things sells. Winning weight classes winning championships in 100 weight classes, things that haven't been done before, it sells because people think that they're watching something amazing. So they don't want to catch these kind of people. A guy who knocks out more and more people, like Canelo Alvarez, sells and whatnot. We don't want to catch this guy cheating. He brings in too much money. It sells. People want to watch this. So of course it's poor.
Yeah, we've seen that pretty much in the example. Like, obviously Canelo having to take the step up in weight class to take this fight, Matt. We've seen it before with I suppose David Haye and Tony Bellew case in that point, where they're essentially crossing streams, crossing weight divisions to try and hook up these dream matches. They're becoming more and more prevalent, but with that, there are more and more dangers that go along with them.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we've seen that. You mentioned David Haye and Tony Bellew there. We saw what happened to David Haye in that contest, where his leg kind of gave out, and he's been troubled by injuries for a very, very long time now. And this can happen over long careers, and injuries do happen, and injuries are far more common these days. And you kind of ask yourself why? Why is the body being pushed to levels that it wasn't before, that it wasn't able to be pushed before? You know, that's any boxer's body. But it raises lots and lots of questions with what's going on in the boxing world at the moment. Kind of going back to Paulie's point in terms of, you know, the media and various people are kind of reluctant to out these drug cheats. It's true. The vast majority of the media is. I mean, Boxing News, though, I mean, we're certainly not in the business of trying to keep anybody in the industry happy. We're one of the few out there that are trying to out these guys and doing a lot of research and doing a lot of investigation behind the scenes. But it is exceptionally difficult. It is exceptionally difficult to get people to go on record. We can certainly pass opinions, but with the amount of boxers now where the physiques are increasingly impressive, you could draw the conclusion that 95% of boxers are on drugs. And I don't think you'd be that far off the truth.
Paulie, would you go along with that? 95% or thereabouts would probably be involved in doping on some level?
I think that if it's not there, it has to get there for these guys to have a living. You have to put yourself in a position now where with the way boxing is in 2018, you've got a talented kid who's been boxing since he's about 6 or 7 years old, and he moved his way up the ladder and as a kid, and he turned pro at about 20 years old, and he's got all this talent. He's a phenomenal talent, and now you turn him pro, and all of a sudden, you know, you're going to have to tell him either you start doping or you've just wasted the past 10, 15 years of your life and you got to go get a job. What is the kid going to do? What is he to do? You know what I'm saying? I'll give you my own career example. I didn't start boxing until 1997. I was 16 years old. I had my first amateur fight in 1998. Okay, I was 17 years old. I closed the gap, the skill level gap. I was so talented. I closed the skill level gap. In 3 years, I was the number one ranked fighter in the United States of America in the 60 kilogram weight class. In 3 years from my first amateur fight, I said, I'm closing the gap so fast. Once I turn pro, I'm going to continue to close the gap, and I'm going to have this kind of success and even more because I'm going to be boxing longer and longer and longer. I reached world-class level as a pro, and then the brakes just hit. Okay, I couldn't continue to close the gap. Now people are going to say, "Oh, maybe you stopped improving." It's possible, right? It's possible, but it was just too strong, too powerful. People started having more stamina. It was just like you couldn't gain that kind of recovery. You couldn't gain it. You know what I'm saying? It was like I could not close the gap anymore. I mean, I won world championships, but I didn't reach the elite level that I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? And I started realizing it. I started watching other fighters, and I started watching the performances, and the more and more I started to understand my sport, the more I started realizing this guy's just got too much oxygen. He's recovering too fast. This guy's taking too many punches. This guy's moving up too many weight classes and not respecting anything. It's a zoo. It's a free for all. And yes, some of the media I think would like to help. Here's the problem though. In boxing, the promoters decide who gets credentials to these fights. So trust me, they're watching. The Golden Boy Promotions right now, they have Canelo Alvarez, for lack of a better example, because this is any promoter in general who's unhappy with certain media people. If they're unhappy with certain media people, they just won't give them credentials to their fights. You know what I'm saying? And they'll say, you know what? You're not gonna get media credentials for our show. You know what I'm saying? So obviously all the media wants to be at the big fight, so they don't want to turn off some of the big promoters, right? But you don't have to. Here's the thing: you don't have to actually go after Canelo Alvarez specifically. This is just the latest example. The way this could have been approached is different. I was arguing yesterday with Dan Rayfield from ESPN.com on Twitter. Okay, I got into a Twitter spat with him yesterday, and ESPN is one of the major sporting outlets in the United States. This guy had the goal to write an article saying this punishment was fair and accurate, and it was very, very harsh. It was like as if it was harsh enough on Canelo Alvarez. And somebody else goes, well, he can't risk himself out there, otherwise he's not going to have a job, and people are not. I get that part, but you know what you should do? Instead of coming down specifically on Canelo, instead of coming down specifically on Golden Boy, instead of coming down specifically on the commission, write how this could have been handled. Give us the hypothetical analysis and say, like what I said, you know what? He got the 6-month suspension. Probably if you could have fined him, though, and put him on this 2-year probationary period where he's tested randomly and regularly, and if he fails, he's going to do 2-3 more years of suspension, this might have turned him off a little bit more, or turned the next person off a little bit more from cheating, because they can't afford to keep cheating, and because otherwise the punishment is going to really be harsh, you know? Something could have been out there where you didn't have to come down on Canelo, you just come down on any cheater, you know? Now, okay, he's suspended until what, August? No, he's not even going to get tested until August. This guy can go back on a cycle until August. Are we kidding? This is a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. You don't suspend him and not test him. It's a joke.
Matt, I'm very cognizant of the fact that we're going to be having this conversation again in 6 months' time. If not about Canelo, then definitely about someone else.
Without question. It's going to get increasingly more common. Whether you start to wonder though. You start to wonder: are these things going to be made public? Are the findings going to be made public? You would imagine it's only a matter of time before a huge star in the UK will get found out, and then how is that handled? For example, I mean, we kind of you look at the case of Tyson Fury, and he's just had 2 years out the ring, yet he's coming back and he's being treated. It's almost like it's the hero is returning,
and you can't ask him about the drugs either.
Pardon?
And you can't ask him about the drugs either, as we've seen from ITV's example.
Exactly, and it's that isn't an ideal scenario. The world heavyweight champion, testing positive for a banned substance and then kind of disappearing through the cracks of the system for 2 years, only to re-emerge as the conquering hero, is not good again for the sport of boxing. And the case of Tyson Fury, as lovable and likeable and talented as he is, and then on the back of that, the case of Canelo, the fact that the sport of boxing has done, let's face it, absolutely nothing really. It says it all about the problems that the sport is facing. And just imagine what the people, the outside looking in, those guys that are not involved in the sport of boxing, but just have kind of got a passing interest in it. What do they think of this apparently noble sport? Because the further and further we go down this road, it just gets increasingly dirty, increasingly murky, and exceptionally difficult to kind of see a future.
And on that cheery note, Matt Christie, the editor of Boxing News, thanks so much for taking time out to take our call this afternoon. And Paulie Malignaggi, thanks so much as well for taking time out to speak to us.
Hey man, thanks.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that latest offering from Off the Ball. If you want to subscribe, and you should, check out just up here. All our latest stuff is just down here. Generally, knock yourself out.